thought there was 9.
Yeah,
Is that
Rebecca.
it?
Rebecca
Oh,
is on
Rebecca.
Zoom.
But wasn't, what's his name? The selectman, Watson.
No.
He doesn't come?
No, none of the selectmen are part of it.
Oh, I thought his name was on the distribution list.
It was as the chair
Oh, okay.
for the board.
Oh, all right. Gotcha, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well, good evening. Hi, Rebecca. You're on Zoom. The rest of us are all here. Welcome, everyone. This is the first meeting of the Groveland Search Committee for Town Administrator. We are not organized. This is our very first meeting. It possibly could be the last meeting that the public will see. We'll talk about some organizing principles. I did have an agenda put together, and it's in front of you here, so I think maybe the best thing to do right now is just go around the table and identify ourselves to the public and who has stepped up to volunteer. So, Chief?
I'm Jeff Gillen, the police chief here in Groveland.
Bob Valentine, Fire Chief in Groveland.
I'm Ruth Rivard. I chair the Finance Board for the town.
I'm Janet Nolan. I'm here to help with the recruiting, candidate selection.
I'm Beth Cuniff. I'm the town clerk.
Catherine Alessi, Wood Street, Groveland.
Greg LeBrecq, Baldwin Terrace, Groveland.
And Joe Demore, 9 Cherry Tree Lane in Groveland. So if we wanted to proceed down to the, through the agenda, why don't we look at the first item, which is organizing principles, and we can certainly a little bit of free-flowing discussion, and then the second item, we can talk about appointing a chair and a secretary. I placed the organizing principles at the beginning because this is an organizing meeting, and we want to decide, how we want to operate perhaps before we go to the second item. And it's free-flowing, so one of the things that I feel that I think is really important in our work is that we really protect information. There are people that apply for jobs in the public sector, and they prefer to keep that very private. So it's my humble opinion that I prefer not to be personally, and perhaps none of us should have access to the inbox. We have that vested strictly with Catherine, or whomever Chair Watson decides that would be appropriate. And then I live close by here. I can come by every once in a while and pick up resumes instead of having them emailed to me. So I think that's one of the things that I'm concerned about. I've been on search committees in the past, and we want to protect information and people's privacy. And then second to that, my only other thought is I think the rest of our work probably can't be done with Zoom. We need to huddle and do it in executive session. So, and by the way, Rebecca Oldham is also a member of the team here, and she is available by Zoom tonight. So those are my thoughts, and we can certainly go around and some other thoughts.
I do have a concern on the resumes. My understanding is, 1, maybe 2 members of the Board of Selectmen already have all the resumes.
Okay, well,
You said you wanted to protect people's privacy. Oh. They shouldn't have been allowed access to that.
well, my humble opinion, it's not within the purview of this committee to enforce or even investigate that.
I'm not investigating. You mentioned privacy.
Right. Okay, that's fine. Do you have a solution?
No, I don't.
Okay.
But I think if they give us the task of doing the search, it should be left to us.
Well, you'll notice that on number 5 in the agenda, one of the things that I placed is I prepare a list of questions to the BOS and communication to them, so that might be something we can express to them in writing. That's why I put that item there on number 5. So if there's something that is important to us, in this case, that's very important, I appreciate that, and we make that communication to them that we want in this case, the information protected.
Right.
That's fine. But good.
Before we get going too much, can you, I don't know if you're the person that can help us explain what our charge is? I know I've been asked to volunteer to be on this committee, but I have some questions and concerns. And I can tell you, kind of what they are, maybe that would help if you're able, or anybody here can explain. Is it just us 9 folks here that are going to be responsible for bringing, what, maybe 3 candidates or so many candidates to the Board of Selectmen? Is that what we're going to do?
The charge is not that specific. That's why this is an organizing meeting, and that's
Okay.
why that's number 1 that I placed there, because we can decide we want to be just a screening committee and produce 5 or 6 candidates, or whittle it down to 3, and maybe make a recommendation to 3 or 2 or 1. I mean, it depends on how, how you want to define it,
I'd like to
how we
see,
want to define it.
I would like to see if that's the case, that the board considers hiring a professional company to vet these folks that we have that are going to apply for this job, because they have concerns. Who's going to do the background? Who's going to check their personal financial status? Who's going to do a psychological? Who's going to be responsible to check these folks out and make sure everything they say is accurate and that they are the best? This is probably one of the most important jobs I think the town's seen in a long time. And I don't know that anybody here, I don't know the qualifications, but I'm surprised that it'll be just up to us. I'd like to see a professional company, which a lot of communities use. They would go through the resumes, they would present so many candidates to us, and then there's a lot of talent and experience in this room, I'm sure, that could then take what was given to us. But to give us, I don't know how many resumes we said, like 18? We got to go through all those. And then again, how do we vet those resumes and assure that everything's accurate and that they're qualified? And again, who's going to do the backgrounds on all these folks? So I would just like to consider that, or to have somebody consider it. I would assume the board, or if this committee agrees with me at all, that there should be a professional company that's presenting names to us and getting it down to, I'd say at least maybe 3 would make our job a lot easier too, and get it on a level that we can all handle it. Thank you.
Anybody want to respond or have something to
I
add?
think that's a good idea. For this kind of position, yes. I mean, it's not like hiring an engineer. I'm not saying that engineers aren't important, but for this position,
Greg? I thought you were going to say something.
I guess, before we go down the path of that, and I appreciate everything that Jeff's saying, because I know exactly where he's going with this, is there maybe our charge needs to be a little more specific to get to the point? I don't even know, I'm looking at the ad and things. When was the application deadline? How long does this,
I don't know.
at any job posting I've ever seen, there's submit your application by such and such a date. That's your cutoff point that you begin your review. Are these things that's going to be trickling in for months?
I don't
Good.
think months, but I
Well,
don't know.
but we need to somehow someone needs to set a deadline for this, don't they?
That's what a professional company would do. They would do
But
the,
even in the ad,
yeah.
you'd hand the resumes over to them if you decided to hire them at a point. But at some point, we have nobody in that chair right now, as I understand it, or anything close to that chair. I can tell you firsthand that what you guys don't know about is there's a lot of stuff coming your way very quickly that you don't even know about yet.
Who's you?
The school stuff coming.
Oh.
There's been changes from when town meeting happened, and not for the better in the state budget. So there's going to be a lot of stuff coming your way. I certainly hope someone has a deadline. I would sit there and say, obviously they've been coming in. Usually you have like 2 weeks, 3 weeks to put them in. Catherine, was there a deadline on when resumes were due for this at any point?
It did go on for 30 days though, and it's come off the MMA, so I'm hoping you guys can give me a new job description to repost.
yeah, that job description does need work.
Well, I think if we could consider getting this company involved, that they would do the job posting, that's a great point, Greg. As an equal opportunity employer, what are you going to get halfway through the process and have somebody all of a sudden apply, and then we have to start over again? You have to give everybody a chance if there's no deadline, I would think. So I would just ask that we, before we get too involved, to see if others would agree, or is that our charge? Are they expecting us to do all this? And again, who's going to do the backgrounds? I know I can't in my job. That's civilian. I can't go getting involved in people's backgrounds for jobs like that. I don't know who's gonna do that.
I agree, that's why we need a search firm. I mean, you pay for it, but
Yes.
they write the job description.
So-
They get the candidates, and you
Exactly.
get the resumes of what they consider to be the top candidates.
And they would give us a few.
Yes,
And we
yep.
could handle that. I think this is a
Exactly.
lot for volunteers, time-wise and professional time,
Yeah.
experience. This is a really, really important job, and I don't think we can afford to mess it up. We can't have a candidate in here and then find out, or somebody we hire, and then find out that they're not who we thought they were. It's really involved, and I know it costs several $1,000s, but I think any money that's spent on that would be well worth it. So I don't know how we get that. If you organize tonight and we take a vote and present that to the Board of Selectmen,
Sure.
and if people don't agree, that I understand that they have different thoughts maybe, but it's something I've been thinking about, and I didn't know if that was already gonna take place, so that's why I was kinda asking you, Joe, is this already gonna happen?
I did not attend a meeting with the Board of Selectmen and receive the charge like I did with the Government Study Committee. I received an invitation to join this meeting, to set a meeting, and I volunteered, I wasn't asked, I volunteered to put together an agenda to get things started. So I don't have a written, or very clear charge from the Board of Selectmen, other than what I presented to you, which was, you folks decide how you want to proceed.
If I,
And so what you're suggesting, for example, is a way to proceed.
yeah, if I'm gonna put my name behind somebody, I want it to be bulletproof. I owe that to the Board of Selectmen in the town, and I'll admit here now that I don't know a lot of what a town administrative may do or what their qualifications should be. I have a lot of other expertise or hiring. I've hired countless people, at the police department, so I do have a lot to offer, but a professional firm would I think, close any of the gaps that we may have or timelines. And again, I know there's folks here who could do this if they want to. I just don't know if they have the time. And again, some of the background stuff is what I'm really concerned about.
Maybe, if I may, why don't we start at the beginning? I think Joe has done an admirable job coming forward. He took the lead on this. He took the lead in the Government Study Committee. Why don't we start with the beginning? I'd like to make a motion that we make Joe Demore chair of this committee.
I'd second that.
I guess there's no one here to say any discussion because we don't have a chair yet, so.
I'll say, is there any discussion? Someone's got to say, is there any discussion?
Joe, would you accept the charge?
Well, I'll accept that, because I heard the pay and benefits are unbelievable.
Oh, they are. I've got extra change in my pocket.
That's fine, thank you.
All right, so I guess all in favor?
I'll
So
abstain.
that's step one. Step two is we need a secretary. I'm sorry, Joe, that's you. Now, I'm done. Like how I slid that in there?
Well, I'll support the secretary of sending communications to the board like I did in the last committee, but someone would like to take minutes, we really need someone to volunteer for that. No, I'm not looking at you.
I'll do it if you guys want me.
No, no. Will somebody be a secretary and take minutes?
Yes, I will take the minutes.
Thank you, Beth. Beth, I'll work with you. I'll help you with communications and putting things together, so. Can I,
So you're making a motion for Beth, not have to be secretary?
yes, motion for Beth to be a secretary. Any discussion?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Okay, very good. Well, thank you for that, I appreciate it. I have a question. So, are we a search committee or a screening committee? There is a difference. You're talking about search, with people with qualifications to do that. Perhaps we're a screening committee, so there's two ways to do it. We hire the search company to produce candidates for us, and then we go through our process of debating who we think, should be the last final candidates and present them to the board. You can do it the opposite way, too. We can do the screening first, the pre-screening, and then when we produce 10 or 15 candidates, then we bring those over to the company to do the background checks and so forth, so on. I've seen it done both ways. You tend to save money the second way, because they don't have to go through 10,000 resumes. We do that, and then we break it down to 10 or 15 or 20, check them that they're okay, then they come back to us and we continue our work. That would be my recommendation.
Did you ever work with a company that did it that way?
I believe with one of the, yes, with the superintendent, I believe, we did it that way.
I've never worked that way. I've always, the search firm has done the work and checked the
Yeah, I
references.
mean, the
and-
search committee I was on with, with the superintendent, we roll up our sleeves, we were.
Oh, right,
We were
right.
getting it done. We were like, we were it. We were the front line. And then the background check and all that was done away, we didn't have that. We had the power to intake, but not, not to do the outtake. And so, do it either way. I respect Greg, I'm not comfortable with sending the Board of Selectmen, we've made a decision tonight, within 10 minutes, we want you to spend money and hire somebody.
Well, you're gonna get what you pay for then. I mean,
Understood?
I think if
Understood.
they understood what's going on
Yeah.
and what you may end up with, I think it's a risk.
If I may.
Please.
The normal search firm that I've seen used in the municipal sector on this side would be Collins, the Collins Institute out of UMass.
What's the name of the firm?
The Collins Institute out of UMass Boston.
Okay,
A lot of towns, bigger towns, cities will hire them for search, things like that. I have no idea how much they cost. I've heard numbers in excess of $10,000-$15,000 to do it. Obviously, this isn't a committee with funds. So I guess maybe we move on to the selectmen. Do you wish to contract with the Collins or someone like that? But they tend to be the one you use. And have them collect the resumes and, create the qualifications list and things like that? Or do you want us to set a date to say resumes by, and clearly they're coming in, and we become the screening committee for it?
yeah.
It's really, like I said, I appreciate what Jeff's saying. I mean, I understand it 100%. He's right. This is going to be very important going forward. I'm not so sure we can't do it. But, yeah, it would take a little time and effort. I mean, I just scanned through most of these resumes. I would say half of them, right off the bat, were no for me. But the other half are intriguing enough that I'd want to explore it. But I don't know if we went to the Collins and they created a job description, but even based upon that type of stuff, they're going to want to come out here and interview us to see what we want, or to see what they kind of want, what skill set they're looking for going forward. Some bigger places, maybe like a Lawrence, they may want something heavy on personnel. On maybe a town like this, maybe we want something more heavy in the area of capital asset management and, protecting your things, knowing when things are going out to bid, because you have to take more of that type of a leadership role. So I think the first thing to me is someone communicates to the Board of Selectmen and say, do you want to spend money on this?
What's a company that Georgetown's used a bunch of time? I think it's MPI out of New Hampshire. They're another consulting firm, and I believe
Are they more public safety?
well, they're using, I think, for that, they're going through a town administrator change also, and
Are
they've
they?
used it before. So
I haven't heard of
there
MPI.
are, like you said, there's more than one company.
Oh, yeah, there are.
So you
I'm
could
sure
maybe
there
get
are.
a couple prices and.
Yeah.
Janet, do you know of any companies?
Not off the top of my head, because I haven't been in business, I'm out of business that long, but we use them in high tech. And they start right from the beginning with the job description. I mean, to me, that job description doesn't say much of anything. It's not specific enough. It talks more about the town.
That's fine.
So it needs to be done, redone, and with more information, which would probably be gotten, by talking with somebody like Greg, and I don't know who else, based on what we're looking for. I don't even understand what the town administrator will do based on that description.
Can I get an opinion from Rebecca, who's been patiently watching and listening to us? Hopefully.
My only comment was potentially maybe there combination of both that we should explore. A lot of times search committees will have their volunteer base, but it will be led by a consultant. So we're not delaying on time and making separate steps, but we're also acknowledging the expertise of the consultant in relation to the actual committee itself. So I don't know if that would alleviate some of the cost burden, since there'll still be work being performed by the committee, but it doesn't necessarily separate things and delay on time.
So in case you didn't hear that, Rebecca mentioned kind of a hybrid model where we have a consultant working with us so that we can engage in the process of screening, reviewing, but then we're getting advice from the consultant. And then, of course, there'll be some legal things that they can do that we can't do, like background checks and so forth and so on. So what we can do, we can take a vote, or we can just by consent allow me and Beth, we'll write something to the Board of Selectmen and say, we need clarification, this is where we're leaning as a committee. We'd like to have a consultant on board as quickly as possible. We'll start the screening process for you, but we need to work with a professional consultant as soon as possible, so that we can, engage in the process in the way that you're suggesting. And then they'll come back to us and tell us what they think. They say no, yes, or maybe. Just-
And hopefully, they could help with the job description, because they're going to have to sit with somebody here in town, so they'll know exactly what they
well
want
said.
in a
Thank you.
person.
Agreed. Did you have a question, Beth?
No, I just wanted to clarify who, the Board of Selectmen will clarify the position, or?
I don't know,
Or
would
the
they know,
consultant.
do they have a good understanding of this position? I don't know.
The Board of Selectmen?
Yeah,
They should have the best understanding of.
well,
the
they should, yeah.
Of the position.
Right, so they would have to sit down with, if we get someone from a search firm, they're the ones that would sit down and work with that person to get the job description written, so they advertise it. And the resumes go to them as usually.
In the work that we did on the Government Study Committee, the proposal that was approved by the Board of Selectmen at the end had an appendix with 22 items listed. It's pretty detailed as to what the town administrator would do.
Yeah,
And that can be, it's not a job description, but it's a good, reliable guide as to what the job does. The Board of Selectmen gave us every impression that they very much understand what the town administrator will do and not do in accordance to the proposal and in accordance to the articles that were approved. So that's not an issue, my opinion.
So if you draft something to the Board of Selectmen, and luckily we have a Finance Board member here, because I'm assuming any funds are going to come, they're going to have to find them in the reserve account, which the Finance Committee has an equal share of control over, as well as the Board of Selectmen. So I suppose, do you think the Finance Committee is going to want to be releasing reserve funds 1 week into a fiscal year for this type of a thing?
I'm not going to speak on behalf
And
of
I guess,
every
yeah.
other member of my board who's not here.
I understand that.
I will say that we released funds at the beginning of the fiscal year last year
Okay.
to fund the process when our former finance director was leaving. We were trying to put some processes into place, and we funded some staff, and that came from the reserve fund.
Okay.
Because it was the
Because
place to take.
that's basically your funding source right now. If they want to go for a search committee and they cost money, that's your funding source.
So to recap, at this point, we're looking for clarification of a charge. We definitely want a job description. And we definitely want to petition the Board of Selectmen to align with this committee some form of professional consultation organization or even an individual to assist us. Would that be a good summation of what we've discussed thus far?
I think so.
Just one clarification.
Yes, please.
I think before we would submit that to the selectmen, we should do some research to have figures of how much it would cost, who we're recommending, just for the sake of time. Because they're gonna say, well, how much is that gonna be? Then it's gonna be another 2 weeks before another meeting.
You're talking about the consulting?
To go, right, present it before the selectmen.
Sure. When's their next meeting? Does anybody know?
Monday.
Monday.
Monday, so today's
Tuesday.
Tuesday, so we have until Thursday to allow them to put something on the agenda for discussion. And I write fast, so if you give me the okay, I'll put something together and I'll share it with Beth and then we'll send it over to them by tomorrow morning.
But I think
I
we
don't
should have
sleep.
a proposal, we should have a proposal ready,
Sure,
you know?
absolutely. Yeah, because it'll take 2 weeks. If they decide next Monday to hire someone, now we're 2 weeks. Should we, during that process, should we engage in screening? How does
What we've
everybody
got?
feel about that?
Screening
What-
the
with what we've got?
applications.
What we have in front of us, these resumes.
Well, maybe
Oh,
we
why
should
not?
discuss, you said the 2 ways to do it, either screen first or screen after. And I think, like you said, it would save money to do it if we screened and then presented them the applicants. However, Janet said maybe they can find more applicants just through the way they advertise.
There's 3 methods, screen first, screen after, and then Rebecca's, which is, personally, that's my favorite, is screen concurrently. We have a consulting firm working with us side by side, right from the get-go.
Some of them won't do that. They want to take over and
Sure.
screen the resumes.
Okay.
I mean, maybe the 2 that you mentioned, maybe they will do that, but typically, they don't want to, the only thing we would tell them is, we're looking for people also, so we'll let you know the names, so that if you come across them, you know, that goes for us, we don't pay them anything for those.
Yeah. And I understand, there's potential liabilities involved. And I think that's what the chief is implying as well. There's potential liabilities when you get in the business of hiring people. You know, I did that for 22 years with my own business, so I know. Okay. That's a really good point, Kathy. Thank you. Chief, any thoughts? We go around the table here.
I like Rebecca's idea of screening with a consultant, if we can get that.
Yeah. Well, we'll present those 3 ways to go, and they're going to have to price it out. And if they, I mean, I can't tell you what the Board of Selectmen are going to say or do, but they're going to ask the question. I know them well enough. I've been working with them for a long time. They're going to ask the question, can't you guys do it yourself? So what is our response? I think it's pretty clear. There's a liability that we're concerned about, and legal things that we can't do as volunteers.
And with all due respect to them, the fire chief's position was open for over 2 years before they hired a full-time fire chief. This is a town administrator. It's above the fire chief. So this is somebody that's got to run the whole town, not just one department.
Sure.
So we got to get it right.
Chief?
Again, getting back to concerns, like, even when you interview somebody, I'm held to a pretty high standard. When you bring somebody in, there's certain things you just can't even ask them, that you might want to ask them. You know, you don't want to violate their rights or the whole hiring process. Maybe once you make a conditional offer, then it puts it at a different level, and then you're allowed to ask certain questions. But those are things we've got to be concerned with, too, that if we do get somebody before us, I don't know if we're going to do that, too. Are we going to have in-person interviews with the folks that we picked, if we narrow it down or whatever? So Rebecca had a good idea, Greg's had some good ideas, you did. So I think we're going someplace that we're going to be okay, but we have to do something more than not really know what we're doing at this point. We got to get it defined and get a charge and get a professional, whether it's consulting. Again, we could check with a couple local towns that are going through the same thing right now.
Would you happen to know which towns have recently engaged in this process or are engaged in it?
Georgetown is the one that I know most recently.
Okay.
They've used this company before, and I don't want to start a rumor, but I believe they're doing it again, either right now or they're planning to, and I can get more info on that, and, you know, maybe we could come up with a couple different companies, and then, like you said, maybe come up with some prices or to help the selectmen make a decision.
Did Georgetown hire someone recently?
No,
No.
they're going to be.
Is that
Yep.
public, as far as you know?
That's why I might be starting a rumor, so.
Yeah,
let me-
okay, that's fine.
Is now.
I'll find out more info.
I'll make a phone call tomorrow. I'll
Okay.
fish around. Boxford, I think, hired someone recently, and,
Yeah, they went through
Boxford.
Boxford just
Yep.
hired somebody, and I
Yeah.
think maybe Wenham
I'm
did.
sorry, Rebecca?
I will say that the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, the Regional Planning Commission, they just went on a search for their executive director. And as a commissioner representing Groveland, it was very similar to what the chief is saying too, is that, there was a search committee created of the commission members. And then that committee worked with Paradigm Associates, a firm that has the expertise in municipal employments. And so they then worked with that search committee, and then that search committee narrowed down candidates and brought them before the actual commission members themselves, and then that commission made a vote.
So Rebecca is reiterating with some detail, in case you couldn't hear, that, I'm sorry, the Merrimack Valley, the name of the organization?
Merrimack Valley Planning Commission. the
Merrimack
Regional Planning
Valley Planning Commission is in the process of hiring an executive director, and basically the same thing, which is really a very attractive idea, is that we're aligned with a consulting firm right from the get-go, right from out of the box. And they're advising us and guiding us so that we can do our work with some expertise. So it's like adding another member to this committee, but now it's a professional who can deflect some of the potential liability from us and from the
And then
town.
they also would say oh, you can't say, these are the questions you can ask, these are
Yeah.
the questions you can't ask. They would also advise us to executive session rules and all of
Yeah.
those matters to keep them in check, because obviously they themselves were not versed in that matter. So it was extremely helpful in terms of that process and covering all those liabilities that the chief had just pointed out.
Was that
So very, very good-
Community
good po-
Paradigm,
I'm
did
sorry?
she say? Paradigm Associates?
Yeah,
was
Paradigm
that?
Associates.
I've seen their name a lot.
And they'll help us with the kind of questions we can ask and not ask. And, really, and when I wasn't going to serve on this committee until I found out that Beth was on it, because we need someone that knows the open meeting law a little bit better than I do. And I know that Beth would be helpful. But this company, according to Rebecca, also would give us some pretty decent guidance all along the way about open meeting law and what we can and cannot do and how to do things. Again, to protect information, so I think Rebecca really hit it on the head, and I think that's probably, I'll still present 3 ideas, but by consent, I think this committee is pointing towards Rebecca's concept of a concurrent alignment with the search committee, so that we're doing our search and our screening with some professional advice. We'll present that. I'll fire something off. I'll consult with Beth. I'll fire something off tomorrow and ask them to put it on the agenda, if they would consider putting it on the agenda for next Monday, so that they can get a decision and they can get moving on hiring someone. So that's very good. That's what I like about working committees. A lot of smart ideas.
I think that's kind of, well, maybe working backwards, when do they want someone in here? This can take a year, it can take 2 years, it can take a month. It's just, how long, when do they want someone in that chair?
ASAP.
Yeah, I think the general
ASAP.
consensus is fast, but I will tell you this about the Board of Selectmen. They never put the Government Study Committee under any pressure. They wanted us to work as fast as we could. We worked as fast as they wanted us to, but,
Your deadline was town meeting.
they,
You had a deadline.
well, we sort
To
of.
be posted for
That
town
was-
meeting.
That was the preferred, but, if we didn't make the deadline this year, we would have been fine. This is different, though. This is more like, we want to work as fast as possible, but we really want to get somebody in place as fast as possible now. So now, but they haven't communicated that, and they're not a board that would put this committee under that type of pressure. But in the spirit of respecting their wish, we want to move quickly and do quality work. So let's get some professional help so we can move quickly and do quality work.
Well, I'm just,
Because we can't take a year to hire a town administrator.
the only reason, and I respect everything everybody's saying here, and I get the concept, But you don't just go hire a consulting firm. You have to go to bid.
Understood.
That takes time. And then that's be reviewed, and there's bid process, and I suppose, if it's gonna be our consultant, we're gonna be the ones reviewing those bids. You may not have that person on board for 2 months.
Is there a fast track?
Not really. I mean, you have to go out to bid, then you have to review, you have to create a rating scale for them, because you can't just pick the one you like best. It has to be objective and transparent, how it's going to be bid, you have to create up with a set of criteria that you're going to rate the consultants on, their experience levels. So, I mean, that's all things we'd have to do behind the scenes. At the same time, you have to create an RFP, go out to bid. I mean, this is going to take some time. It's not, you just don't call up a consultant and say, come on in.
Yeah, and interview them.
If it's under 10,000, do you have to put it out to bid?
Yeah, it would depend on.
Oh, this is going to cost you more than 10,000.
I'm sorry, Rebecca, what did you say?
I just reiterated what the chief said. It would depend on the price threshold, and technically, legally, there is no chief procurement officer. It would be the Board of Selectmen is the chief procurement officer as well.
Right, and this whole bidding process,
Give you an example.
it's gonna have to be done by the Board of Selectmen because they don't have someone in place.
I'll give you an example. We hire superintendents at the schools. You hire a consultant to do the search. Usually it's the Mass Superintendents Association or something like that. It costs, and that's just a superintendent. I guess we could equate that as a type of position you're looking for here, the person in charge of the thing.
Absolutely.
It's going to cost more than 10,000, and it's going to take some time. As much as, it's gonna take months. So that's why I said, when do they want someone, because if you go down that path, that's the path you have to go down. So, if that's the path they want, if they want us to just put a time limit on resumes and go through them, and then maybe hire someone at a limited thing at an under $10,000 rate, where you don't have to go out to bid, someone that's got a good reputation, Rebecca seems to know some people or whatever, Collins Institute I've heard of, the ones that, I'm sorry, I forget your name.
Janet.
I'm horrible with names. She knows a few. You could probably just call them up and say, we've culled our resumes down to, we have 15 of them. And how much would it cost for you to come in here to review them and do background checks? And then we can get use that as a culling mechanism, if time is of the essence. If time isn't of the essence and they want to release some funds to do this, yeah, we can sit as a committee and help them create the package.
I think that's a great idea. Save some time by, not going above the $10,000.
It kind of-
Staying under 10,000.
Well, it kind of fits the hybrid she's talking about.
Right,
but
isn't
we're-
that exactly what we were getting to? That's what Rebecca said, and that's
Yeah,
what we
the
were
hybrid-
talking about concurrent, is that we
hybrid
could screen, we could cull them down, and then we could certainly engage a professional to do some checking and to give us, re-steer us once we've narrowed it down, give us a refocus, and then background checks, what have you, and move forward. And then our charge, I believe, is to take however many, 3 to 5 candidates that we think are actually viable, we hand those over to the Board of Selectmen to conduct the interview process. And we've done the screening.
So at that point then, okay, we need a deadline of when these things are going to be here by. We go back, I'm coming back full circle again. At some point, this process has to end.
Then we can,
Are they going to go redo an ad again for, oh, you didn't like the job description, or, I don't,
I agree that this posting is very, very vague. It tells you what the town size is, but it doesn't really tell you the job they're looking for.
I think anybody that's answering a job description for a town administrator
Yeah,
knows
but-
what they're getting into.
I understand.
They know what the job description is. They're just saying that now the town of Groveland is also, in fact, looking for a town administrator similar to many of our fellow communities. They know, these people probably have applied for the job in other communities. They know what it is.
I still think.
But we
you-
still will clean it up,
Yeah,
beef
it's
it
gotta
up.
be
That's
cleaned up.
fine. We can make ourselves more presentable for sure. But I think that they all know what it is. If you're applying for it,
Understood.
you know
I
what's
just-
entailed.
But it was a little, doesn't say that it's gonna be the first town administrator. I mean, I think that's an important part of the whole issue is this is a big step for the town.
Plus, there does need to be a job description. an official job description with all of the requirements and experience and education and,
Sure.
Which is what you're,
I think that there are flavors and copies of that floating around. I think
Yeah,
it just
they-
needs to be assembled and it needs to be discussed and approved. I think that exists in a working format.
here in Groveland.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
So we can tell
I
that
have
to
a job
the,
description here.
Oh, okay. But it's not the one that, you know, we're all looking
Well,
at.
she just gave it to us.
It's not the posting.
This is, you put the posting, and then
Right.
the people can get on, I think it's on the website, and then you pull up the job description.
Okay, but what is, for other sites that we want to post it on? We'd post the description, not the summary. Well, I mean, why not post the description? Like,
I don't know
like
how
that.
they do it. I don't know how they all.
I don't know
do
if the posting, I wonder if the posting is
The-
by words and size, and so you just alert that this is the
Yeah.
town looking for it, and then this is the avenue to find more information about
Right.
it. It could be just a size thing.
right, I
Is
know.
Rebecca
I
speaking?
know when I
Rebecca
was-
confirmed that that's correct.
Yes,
Right.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yes. I know when I was searching for chief's jobs, that's the way it was. You'd see the town, quick blurb like this, and then it
Yeah.
would give you a link on the website to see the full
Right.
job description.
Yeah.
If you go to the Groveland website, I'm pretty sure it says the job
Is it-
description on there.
Because I believe the initial group that you headed, Mr. Demore, just did that. You gave a job description and,
Well, we had a charge, and it did include a job description, and
Right.
when I was asked to include it, I said we wanted to end our work so that we could be ready in time for town meeting. We didn't want
Right.
to delay, put on several more meetings and develop a job description as well. We felt that we did the work up to a certain point to get to the town meeting for approval, and we did not engage in a job description. It was not part of our original charge, and my committee supported me in the notion that we didn't want to take that additional responsibility, so we effectively finished our work without a job description presented to them. However, we did have an appendix that can be referenced to, for anybody that wants to write a job description, follow the appendix, and you've got 75% of it done by our committee, so. So just a reiteration of the agenda for tonight, organizing principles, we've had a good discussion, choose the chair and secretary. The next item is discuss executive session rules. Any thoughts about that? I think we've kind of talked around about that. Does that make sense that our work should be done in executive session for the most part, when we're discussing actual candidates? Anybody have any feelings about
under
that?
Mass
or-
General Law, that's one of the reasons you go to
Oh.
executive session is personnel issues.
Sure. Okay, so that, no contest there, I don't think,
Right, to
the public won't see us again.
protect the privacy of those
Potentially.
who are going through the initial process. Sure,
Yes, yeah.
that's reasonable.
Rebecca, any thoughts? You're in agreement?
Yes.
It's
totally.
required? Okay. The next item is to discuss access to the
Well-
inbox. I'm sorry?
Not in its entirety, we're not always in executive session. If we're talking about items we want in the job description, if we're talking, it's only when you're talking about,
Actual
People.
candidates, yeah.
so you'll always open the meeting most likely in general session, we'll do that other things, and then you do an executive session to discuss candidates specifically. But work you do on, hiring a search firm, or work you do on what type of qualifications you want, that stuff's open meeting. That's not,
Well, I appreciate that, because that's my error for not remembering that. That's right. We're going to open up in general
and
Session.
do maybe approve minutes, things like that.
minutes.
And then you go, when
Yeah.
you're discussing these, but other things you do in open session.
Yeah, I haven't done that since 2014, so thank you for reminding me that I need a job description. And then, and discussing access to the inbox, I've expressed my views that, I prefer not even emails as a medium of expression for resumes, only because I've experienced, not me personally, but I've seen mistakes made. And when you put something on a public server, it's public. So using real paper and transacting in sensitive information like resumes, should be done, in my opinion, in executive session and on paper, so. And then the last item, the last couple of items that we have on the agenda, prepare the list of questions the Board of Selectmen, and I've summarized a few minutes ago a communication.
Can we go back to so then how is the inbox then going to be managed?
Well, it seems to me that, because I asked Catherine specifically, you have access to the inbox, she said yes. So I'll ask for clarification that that's the way the Chair Watson wants it, and I don't want that, in my opinion, I don't want, even as the chair here, I don't want to have access to that inbox. I prefer coming here and picking up the resumes, not tapping into it digitally. I just feel it's a key that I don't want, personally. So,
How are we gonna communicate then? What are we gonna, if we have to change a meeting, or if we don't have a quorum, how are you gonna get that message out?
well, as the chair, I'll ask for your consent as to when we should meet, how often, and next time, and then, keep in mind one thing about open meeting law. I mean, we can transact that information when it's just a matter of setting a meeting up,
Okay.
okay? As long as we're not conducting business, I can set, I could send out a blast email to this group and say, is everybody available for such and such a date at 5:30? And we're fine. We're not violating open meeting law by organizing a meeting. So as long as we don't transact in any business, we're fine. So that's how we're gonna communicate.
Okay.
Now, because we don't have quorum, I'll put together a communication to go to the Board of Selectmen. I can't really share that with everybody and get everybody's opinion on it, but I value Beth's opinion on it. And between the two of us, she being the secretary, me being the chair, we'll put together a communication, for example, hopefully to get the Board of Selectmen to agree to have a discussion about what's most important to us here about hiring a firm for next Monday. So I'll work that out with Beth, just so we can technically get some communications out to people, to the board specifically. Because that's what I did on the Government Study Committee. I was sending very detailed communications to them, and every one of them was marked, please put this on as a correspondence to your next meeting, so that they would make copies of it, and all members of the board would say, hey, this is, what the Government Study Committee is doing. This is where they're at. These are some of the questions they have. These are some of the recommendations they have. And then it became a public record, and it became part of the agenda as well. Or, if not part of the agenda, it was at least an item of correspondence, part of the meeting packet. So, those are good habits I learned when I was on the school committee, so. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns so far? Because I have a question. Should we wait to see what the Board of Selectmen's response is before we set the next meeting?
No,
Yes?
no, we should
No?
set another meeting so that we can keep forward progress.
Okay?
I would think, especially when we're all here, then you're not I mean, if
That's fine.
If we can set a meeting or even set a protocol for when we want to meet, I mean, it's going to be summertime, it's going to be pretty busy. Is there are we looking for a certain day of the week? Are we looking for a certain frequency? What works best for everybody? I think that's helpful while we're all here in person.
Let's explore that now, because I do have another question for the committee. Tuesday, does this work? Does this time and space, Tuesdays work, 5:30 generally work for people?
Only every other, because the selectmen, do they meet Tuesday or Monday?
Every other, of course.
No, the
yes.
selectmen are Monday.
Monday?
They were only Tuesday
Oh, because of the holiday.
because of the holiday last week, yeah. They're
And
generally
three of the
Monday.
planning board meetings are Tuesday, so the same week of the selectmen, the first and the third.
First and the third, a planning board meeting on the first and the third. On Tuesdays
Yeah.
as well? Okay. Well,
The meetings always have to be at night? Are
Well-
people available? Most of us work here in town, and we're here.
correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, I think there's some rules regulating that meetings like this can't be done during business hours for town employees, do you know?
Well, you can't, town employees are supposed to be working at their jobs, so, I
Right.
mean, if they get out of work at 3, they can be doing
Okay.
3, but, yeah, you can't pay them to be not at their job, to be on a committee,
Yeah.
unless there's something to do with their job,
Sure.
and I guess this doesn't really qualify for that.
So they
So in
would,
other words, if I'm working over at the school and you want to have a meeting at 2 o'clock, I just take some personal time and deal with it. But yeah, you're gonna have to, that's how you'd handle it.
so, I mean, at this point, I think an early, late afternoon, or early evening would make sense, so. Are we meeting once so should we look at Wednesdays? Is that easier for everyone?
Does Conservation have their meetings on Wednesdays?
They do.
Rebecca would know.
Yeah, they do. She's nodding.
Okay.
That's just if you want the room. Their conservation meets every third Wednesday in the
Yeah.
Great Hall.
Yeah,
You could do it, but you just have to schedule in between.
yeah. Are we envisioning meeting once a week or every 2 weeks? Let's start off with that first. Greg?
Assuming that Catherine can get our question about
Mhm.
a consultant on for their next meeting, which would be Monday, as I recall, next Monday,
That's my goal.
then we'd have an answer.
Yeah.
In the interim, we'd have the chance to go through our little thing, what we're doing now. So is planning board next Tuesday, Rebecca, or
Yeah,
Planning board next Tuesday, Rebecca?
at
Yes.
what time?
What time, do you know?
7.
So they're 7:30, so I guess.
At
if you
7:30,
wanted
so
to
we could
for
meet
that.
before that.
Oh, sure.
Sometimes they start at 7.
But even still, 7, if we met at 5:30 or
That's great.
5, we could get it in before them.
Yep.
We'd have our answer, we'd have our meeting date, we'd have a chance to go through this. If the answer's you do it on your own, we'd have something to talk about, go into executive session.
So what's that date?
Next Tuesday,
20th?
That's the
every
20th.
20th.
July 20th, okay, that's fine.
Do you have school meetings on Tuesdays, though? Is that your?
5:30,
Not next Tuesday, no.
at 5:30, we'll be fine.
It's fine with me, I don't know how everybody else feels.
It's fine.
Is there a general
Anybody have a conflict?
with next Tuesday
Any,
at 5:30?
okay,
I won't be here, but.
we're okay? All right, so we'll set a meeting for
Jeff
July.
I
won't.
won't,
Jeff
but
won't be
I'm
Oh,
I'm
I'm
not
sorry.
here all week, so.
I'm sorry?
I won't be here all week next week.
Okay.
That's gonna happen, I think, with all of us.
We'll have to proceed without you.
Yeah.
Just the benefits of a 9-person committee.
Yep.
That we can, especially in the summertime. It's a good thing.
We're okay?
Yep.
So July 20th, 5:30. I'll post a Zoom link as well, in case anyone, for whatever reason, they, as we have with Rebecca, they prefer to do it from home or remotely, that, you know, we'll keep that option open as a courtesy. So, if everybody does come to the meeting, I won't put on the Zoom recording then. That's fine. The last item, open items introduced by committee members. Votes may be taken. Any other items?
I had one comment, if
Comments?
well, so the town of Boxford just went through this process, and a lot of information was posted on their website, which I went through. And one thing that they did was they posted something on their website to the town residents saying, what are you looking for in an administrator? And soliciting feedback from the residents and the taxpayers so that they can also have some sort of input into the process. And I thought that's something that we should consider as a way of just being available, or at least putting out some sort of communication tool for residents that they can know of this committee and have an avenue to reach out to us if they do have some feedback or concerns or what have you.
Good idea. That's a good idea, yeah.
Well, the last time we had when we had a few years ago, and I believe it was, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm gonna think it was like 2018, there was a survey regarding the town administrator. And we had a very favorable outcome, favorable in favor of. I don't remember the details of what was in it, but it's relatively inexpensive. They used Survey Monkey, I think it was. And,
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
go ahead.
I have to excuse myself from the meeting. I have to be at a building committee for the
Sure.
building up the street.
Right,
So
thank you so
I will
much.
see you all next Tuesday. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Great job. Thank you. Appreciate it. So,
My feeling is a survey, while that is very helpful, it might, then we're going to have to assemble the survey, then we're going to have to agree to it, then the Board of Selectmen is going to have to view the survey. I see that as potentially making the process a little bit more cumbersome. I just would like to have some sort of avenue, a link on the website where if anybody wants to reach out to us, then they could. I think that just might keep us with some forward motion.
well, you know, you just bring up a really good point, because on the Government Study Committee, we did just that. We constantly were advertising, send questions.
Yeah.
Send comments. Anybody from this town can send us questions and comments, and we would percolate them onto an agenda if it was, you know, some idea or some thought that we felt would be productive to the process. We refused nobody. We ended up projecting comment. We didn't get a lot. We didn't get as many as we hoped for. We've got some really great comments and suggestions and guidance from government officials that really, really guided us. But the general public, we only had a couple. And we discussed them openly at a meeting, so we can do the same thing.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. So we're not doing a survey, but the public, you know, can provide us input.
Just knows where we are. Maybe we should have an email account for the group, or, you know, send comments to
Yeah,
such and such.
comments and suggestions, that's a great idea.
Feedback, comments, suggestions, questions, any of that.
Awesome. Well, any other questions or comments? We've accomplished a lot, and we did it without a vote, my favorite way to go.
I have a
That's,
comment.
that's a high-performance team, yes.
I think we should, I know you're gonna formulate something to send to the selectmen, but I think somebody or multiple people should investigate the companies that you wanna hire and find out what are the options, how much do they cost, to present that this week. Because they're only gonna say, they're gonna ask you, how much is that gonna cost?
That's right.
You know, what's the time frame? Let's do the research and get that done, so you can present it to them on Tuesday or Monday.
Well, okay, so now that's another, body of work for this committee. Do we have contacts? Does anybody? Because I don't. And that's a great idea, by the way.
Contacts at,
Say it again, Rebecca?
Paradigm Associate. I
Paradigm.
have a contact at Paradigm Associates through, again, the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission.
Okay.
Maybe she could find out what they offer, how much it costs, what are our options?
Okay. Would you be able to do a little bit of background and
I'd be happy to do some research and provide that to you.
yeah, and
That'd be great.
And if you can let me have it whenever you can, if by Thursday, that would be phenomenal, by Thursday morning. This way here, we can have them put that on the agenda as well for Monday, so.
Do you want one other done? I'll do MPI.
And
Yeah.
and Janet has another one. That'd be great.
Well, somebody else suggested
If you want, I
MPI.
can
Sorry,
find out
Rebecca,
from
what did you say?
From, you can find out.
I will get you something by Thursday.
Appreciate it. Janet, you have a company as well?
No, the
She knows
MPI.
the MPI one.
Yeah.
She could call them, and Jeff said he could contact Georgetown.
I'll find out what Georgetown's doing.
Yeah, that would be great. If we get 2 or 3, then we're really.
Yeah, the Collins
MPI,
Center.
I believe, but.
You gotta have something to present them.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, like I said,
You need all the information by Thursday to get on the agenda. You just
Absolutely.
want to get on the agenda,
that's right.
and then, you know, so as long as we have it by Monday.
That's fine.
The Collins Center is a third one that I know gives a lot of advice, so I'd be happy to
Okay.
sort of feel them out, see what I can get from them.
So just in the interest of making sure we can communicate, if you want to feed that to me, my email is my last name, D-A-M-O-R-E, D-A-M-O-R-E, all small
I
letters,
think it's on the
Can you send
email
that
that
to
we
us?
got.
cos@gmail.com, just so you have it. Put that, send it over to me without comment. Don't make any comments, just say, here's the information you're looking for, and we're good to go.
Okay.
And then I'll,
That way you'll have something to present to
yeah,
them.
yeah, it's a good idea. And if I have time, I'll even come into the meeting if they have any questions, so, good, very good. All right, any other questions or comments? So we opened up the meeting at 5:35.
I have a comment.
I forgot to mention that for the camera, go ahead.
For our homework, are we going through the applications?
Well, that was my next question. I do have a question. How do you feel? Should we take these home and go through them and as individuals start,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
screening?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
that's fine.
You
We're
said
good on
let's
that? That's,
Start moving forward.
we feel that by, Rebecca, does that seem,
That's fine. May I get a copy or
Sure.
coordinate with Catherine for a copy?
yes, I'll ask Catherine to have a copy for you here, so, okay. All right, very good. So that was my question, and I guess that by consent, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I would be very eager to, you know, start going through these, so, for sure. All right. Any other comments or questions, concerns? All right, is there a motion to close out the meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Janet, second. Any further discussion? Okay. And how do you vote?
Aye.
Fine.
And it's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Well done. We'll see each other next week, God willing. Thank you, Rebecca. Great
She's going on
job, as
vacation.
usual.
Lucky man.
Maybe there'll be no more
This
rain
packet
left on
that
the
she gave us
sky
has a lot of duplicates.
by the time you go on vacation. We were in Maine